Before we get started, I want to make something absolutely clear. This is not a Tampa Bay Buccaneers hate channel. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of rooting for the Buccaneers. I feel like it's one of the most interesting storylines in the NFL this season. Two Bill Belichick superstars go to Tampa to prove to Bill Belichick and the world that they could win without B squared. Now, what's interesting is they also have another head coach that hasn't had nearly as much championship success as Bill Belichick, but is very respected throughout the entire league and has one of the most complex offensive schemes in the entire NFL in Bruce Arians. And Bruce Arians is notorious for one thing, and that's the fact that no matter what team he goes to, his teams always neglect the tight end. Now, this is especially surprising considering the fact that, well, Bruce Arians didn't just get Tom Brady, he got Tom Brady's BFF and Rob Gronkowski on his team as well. So what's going on, guys? Your boy Mike here, and before we get to the content, I'd just like to remind you that we're giving away a PlayStation freaking 5 on my Twitter account. That's a $500 come up if you happen to win. A link to that's in my Twitter, and that's going to be in the description down below. On top of that, if you could do me a favor and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe, and turn on my notifications so we can help grow the channel. I do this full time, and every subscription and notification bell really makes the difference in allowing me to sustain myself by doing this full time. Now that we got all that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Guys, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were able to win their second week game, and I was kind of hoping that would be the case. I didn't want to admit that Tom Brady fell off of a cliff. And although he doesn't seem to be the Tom Brady of old, it's just so remarkable to watch one of the greatest, if not the greatest quarterback in NFL history just continue to crush narrative after narrative despite him being way past his prime. And I'm rooting for him, 100% rooting for him. Now, of course, so far, Tom Brady's statistics on the year don't look to be that phenomenal. So far, he has a 65% completion percentage. He's thrown for 456 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. But if you know Tom Brady at all, he's not all about the individual accolades and individual awards. The guy has more than enough MVPs and Pro Bowl selections to last a lifetime. But he's more about team statistics and being able to hoist the Lombardi trophy at the conclusion of the season. But here's the one thing that we haven't been discussing at all, and it's the fact that despite having Rob Gronkowski, which is, by the way, I said this when the Buccaneers traded for Rob Gronkowski, I think it was by far one of the most redundant moves in NFL history, because on one hand, you already have a very capable tight end in O.J. Howard, and this is not me hating on Rob Gronkowski at all. I actually really like the guy. I think he has one of the most fun personalities in NFL history, and honestly, I think he retired at the proper time. Literally, you saw the individual crying in an interview discussing how he lost his love for football and how his injuries are causing him to break down, and that's why he's promoting a CBD company.
I needed to recover. I was not in a good place. Football was bringing me down, and I didn't like it. And I was losing that joy in life, like the joy.
And we all agreed universally that if there was one person that could successfully transition from the gridiron to movies, it would be Rob Gronkowski. Every time I see Gronk in any type of content, whether it's him going undercover as an Uber driver or making cameo appearances in TV shows, I can't help but smile. Everyone loves Gronk, whether you're a Patriots hater or at this point a Buccaneers hater or not. Everybody loves him. Now, when he decided to come back, I thought, okay, this is probably Gronk and Brady trying to prove that they don't need Bill Belichick in order to succeed. And I thought maybe, hey, he took a year off and, well, maybe he's going to be able to come back and make all the difference. And I also thought that from a schematic standpoint, it made absolutely no sense because Bruce Arians neglected a former first-round pick in O.J. Howard, so why would you go ahead and trade for Rob Gronkowski? Yes, he's a great run blocker. I understand that. Yes, he's a great receiver. He's one of the most iconic receivers ever, and he's probably the first tight end that I've ever been able to see do really well in run blocking, but also do phenomenally as a receiver as well. And that's what makes Gronk so iconic. So in that sense, I kind of understood the Buccaneers trading for him. I thought Bruce Arians maybe whip out some double tight end sets because they didn't opt to trade O.J. Howard as soon as they acquired Rob Gronkowski. But Bruce Arians came out and said some stuff that I couldn't help but raise my eyebrows at these statements. And we're going to break down the statements and then tell you why it's so weird. So, according to Jenna Lane ESPN, Bucs tight end Rob Gronkowski has had a total of 4 targets on 33 routes run in 2 games. Bruce Arians said that opposing defenses really aren't doing anything to take him out. So, it's not like Rob Gronkowski's getting covered like crazy. And then Bruce Arians said, we're not throwing it 50 times to tight ends. That's what we have wide receivers for. And when he was asked to elaborate on this statement, Bruce Arians said when he was asked whether he was surprised by Gronkowski's lack of production in the passing game, he said, not really. He's got a nice PI for us and we missed him in that one route. I am not concerned with his pass catches or his targets. So I'll tell you why this is bad. It's not bad from a team standpoint in the sense that, hey, team chemistry is going to be off and Rob Gronkowski is going to start stamping his feet. No, this guy's a Patriot. He knows what it takes to win championships. He's not going to do that. But it's just very maddeningly inefficient if you think about it, because Rob Gronkowski is the 6th highest paid tight end in the NFL this season. And what's a little bit upsetting is at the time he was being traded for, he was the 3rd highest tight end in the NFL, like the 3rd highest paid tight end. So currently he's behind George Kittle, who recently got a contract extension, Travis Kelce, who recently got a contract extension, Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper, who was signed by the Cleveland Browns this offseason, Kyle Rudolph, and Rob Gronkowski make the same amount. Right underneath him is Zach Ertz, then Jimmy Graham, then Jared Cook, and Darren Waller. All of those players are being targeted more than Rob Gronkowski this season. So what's bothering me isn't the fact that Gronk isn't being used. Fine, if you don't want to use your tight ends, that's great, but why would you trade for him to begin with? Do you think it was something to do with the fact that he may have been a package deal with Tom Brady? Maybe Brady just wanted some familiarity in order to shift the culture of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and make it a little bit more Patriot-like. Or maybe he just wanted another voice in the locker room that would support him. Because Gronk hasn't really had a productive season since the 2017 season when he went over 1,000 yards receiving and had 8 receiving touchdowns. Obviously, he got injured during the playoffs that season, but the Patriots were able to make it to the Super Bowl. In 2018, he was able to play in 13 games, but he only notched 682 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. I'm not saying that you need a game plan for Rob Gronkowski. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that I would expect Tom Brady to approach his head coach and say, listen, we have an asset over here. This is a guy that I'm very comfortable throwing the ball to. So I understand that I have a phenomenal wide receiver pair in Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. I understand that, hey, this Scotty Miller guy is giving me some sort of pseudo Julian Edelman vibes. At least that's what I think his potential is, despite every single analyst saying that he is the next coming of Wes Welker and Julian Edelman. I think those are some pretty lofty expectations to live up to, but hey, he does have that potential. I understand that I have Leonard Fournette in my backfield, which is also a very capable pass-catching running back, but we also have 2 very capable receiving tight ends in O.J. Howard and Rob Gronkowski. And if we factor them into our game plan a little bit more, then not only will team morale go a little bit higher, but each and every player that gets involved will make it a little bit more difficult for defenses to cover our offense. So at the end of the day, I don't really fault Bruce Arians for not using Rob Gronkowski. I honestly fault Jason Licht, the general manager of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, for trading for him. Why would you pay an individual $9 million in cash just to have him get targeted 4 times this season? I could give you some other players that could have been had this offseason for the same amount as Rob Gronkowski, like Brian Bulaga, the offensive tackle of the Green Bay Packers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers could always use some more pass protection. Jamie Collins, another former Patriot, was signed for $10 million per season. Same with Shaq Lawson. Of course, Ndamukong Suh is making $8 million this season. Michael Pierce, the defensive lineman for the Baltimore Ravens, is also making $9 million this season, which, by the way, the Buccaneers don't really need him. But Mackenzie Alexander, cornerback, he's making $4 million this season. Rodney McLeod is making $6 million per season. Von Bell, he's also making $6 million per season. Now, you could have brought Vic Beasley along as a situational pass rusher, and that would have made a lot more sense for the same amount as you're paying Rob Gronkowski. So at the end of the day, I'm not mad at the Buccaneers for not including him in the offense. I just think it's very inefficient cap space management to trade for a player if you're only going to target him 4 times in the first 2 games of the NFL season, and you don't plan on targeting him anymore. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think about Bruce Arians' management of Rob Gronkowski? I'd really like to get your opinion on this. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.